Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Louisa Munson from the Barefoot Broadcast. How are you doing? What's it like where you are today? It's absolutely peeing it down with rain. We've had storms for quite a while here, and we're all starting to get a little bit damp, a little bit muggy, a little bit fed up. So it's great that we can meet up and have a sort of fresh conversation and bring a bit more kind of life and a bit of a change. I think that's what it is I'm looking for today, is what they say in hypnotherapy is like a break state, this moment to just like have a breather and kind of change your physical state. So let us know how you are. I can see I've got I can see I've got a few people watching so far. Say hello in the chat if you fancy it. You can become part of our show. And I always love to hear from people about what we're talking about. So on today's show, I've got Robert Jardine, who's joining us in just a sec. He's just warming up in the green screen, or wherever it's called, the green room. He's limbering up, doing some exercises and stuff. What a pro. And we've got Carl yamming down a little bit of breakfast behind the scenes. He's going to join us too. The whole purpose of this, like we said, woke in progress, which is one of Carl's catchphrase title type things. But what we wanted to really talk about was how, people get really fixated with their politics, don't they? And they get really fixated in religion, really fixated in philosophy. And what Carl has noticed and quite rightly kind of laughed a little bit at himself over, it's just how passionately we can be for something, and then we can kind of change and evolve. And so I just wanted to have a conversation with the guys, with the gents, these amazing men, about like our shifts and how that happens, and just see where it goes in the sort of classic Barefoot Broadcast way. I can see we've got Owen Lloyd Martin listening in from North Portugal, saying heavy rain in the north of Portugal. Good luck. Or no, good morning. But I read that as good luck. Thunderduck T-Duck is here saying bon dia. And he's saying people who want to share their religious or political views with you almost never want to share yours with them. Love that very much. Suze is joining us, saying good morning. Where are you at the moment, Suze? And are you well? Let's bring Robert on now and welcome him to the show. Yeah, like jazz hands for you. So how are you, Rob? What's new with you? What's changing? Is it peeing down where you are? Because like the north of Scotland does seem to have a bit of rain, precipitation sometimes.
No, it's okay. Just slight drizzle. So today, that's for us at this time of year. That's scorching. So like grey and drizzly. So that's good.
And how are you? What's arising for you at the moment? What's like bubbling up in the background?
Well, we as a family have moved back into the big house for the winter because we let it out. And we were scratching our heads this recently because the government have put in a whole pile of new legislation which has affected us profoundly and made us really sort of have to change direction. So we're pushing ideas. Me and Laura pushing ideas back and forth. She's come up with a great one, but she's looking into it just now. So we're kind of hopeful, but cautious. But we are looking to change this year. We're not sure which way it's going to go, but we need to. We're going to focus more on therapies and putting ourselves out there a bit more. I haven't been really doing that, with my therapy work. I haven't really been doing so much. So hopefully that'll pick up. And yeah, we're just looking. We're sort of brainstorming. We're going through a brainstorming period. I think that's where we're at the moment, which is it's a very creative time.
It is, isn't it? And it is quite an exciting procedure, isn't it? And terrifying sometimes, when you have to change or think you probably need to change, but also want to engage in the sort of creative side of change. It's a interesting one. We've got a lot of people just listening, as Carl is saying. He's saying just having some brekkie, will be with you soon. Listening, deep listening. T-Duck saying, I don't approve of political jokes. I've seen too many of them get elected.
That's good.
He's great. He does. He gives dad jokes to Carl most mornings on his show. And we've got Julian Alexander joining us from Scotland saying good day all as well. So everyone's in good company here. So it's been a few weeks actually, or a couple of weeks since we last chatted. For those people that don't know what it is that you do, you've obviously mentioned you do some therapeutic work. Do you want to just give yourself a little plug?
Yeah. Well, I am a therapist, but a little bit unusual kind of. I mean, every therapist says they're unusual, right? Which is true. We're all unique. I integrate the discoveries of Dr. Hammer into my practice. I use that as my compass. So, Dr. Hammer discovered what makes us ill, or he even redefined illness, to be honest. And he discovered what actually causes symptoms, and I reverse that process, or help people reverse it for themselves, really. And it's great. It's a good thing to do, I believe, with my time on this plane or planet.
Yeah, whatever. Yes, I always say that. Plane,
I've
planet.
forgotten now, so I just keep my options open now.
When I say planet, I think, oh, is it?
No,
But then when I say plane, I think that feels like how it might be. Like, in a body, I actually feel like I'm on a plane that's not moving, that's not spinning through space at a gazillion miles an hour. But I don't know, and I'm really happy to admit that it could be either. I love that you do the same.
Yeah. I know it's become like a nervous reaction. Every time I say it, I correct myself now. I thought, oh my God, I've got to cover all options now.
Do you know what? I've actually started to ask people how they want to be addressed. Like, like when I'm working with new clients, because I'm worried about making assumptions about somebody's gender, et cetera, et cetera. It is a bit of a minefield. And actually, I'm sure that's going to come up a little bit. In our conversation today. I'm an absolute advocate for what you do, by the way, with following the work of Dr. Hammer. And I was chatting to a client in America just earlier this week, in fact, and Carl's just about to join us. And straight after seeing me, she was actually about to connect with somebody who does German new medicine and was really excited about it.
Good.
Yay, it's rising up. So, funny enough, there's a great little link there, because with German new medicine, there's a lot of focus put on the idea of shock and isolation. And of course, politics and our political views is one of the easiest ways to isolate people from each other. So, what you're doing is also counter-political. You're kind of helping to heal the world.
Bringing understanding. Good morning, Rob. Good to see you, mate.
Good morning, Carl. Yeah, how are you?
I'm well, I had a really good old story running. Like, I just finished my Good Morning Portugal show. Mrs. M said, "Oh, I need to go out today. You need to do this. Need to do that." Be on the show. And then the cat is jumping on me. I'm trying a bit of breakfast. Kid wants something. I think, I'm not going to get a moment's bloody peace around here. And I thought, I know. I'll just come and be on the show and get a little bit of peace with Robert. And
this is the most peaceful place.
This is
at this
very
time
peaceful,
of day,
isn't it?
this is the best place to be.
It is. And I was too busy being irritable to realise that. And that's how it is, isn't it? The slippery slope of getting into one's stories robs us of what we truly know we are and can be, and all the rest of it.
Yeah. I totally get that. I've my 3-year-old outside that door, which you can see behind me, we've put a big stand, a big dresser table to stop him getting in.
You barricade yourself in. Very cool. Good tip. Good parenting.
We've got a similar thing with our 4-5-year-old as of next week. We have to do these things.
He'll probably be trying to drill through the wall, or he'll parachute in through a hole in the plasterboard above me or something. Because he gets a pee in his bonnet, and if he feels he's being excluded, oh my God! So we've got to start keep him thinking he's not being excluded, but no, he can't go and see Dad.
Yeah. Can he watch you on a device or something? Have you got anything? Like a picture of you?
Well, no, because
when you put it like
reason, the reason being our internet's so tenuous. We're under strict blackout at the moment. I said, right, I'm going on. Everybody switch everything off, including the telly and everything. Just switch it all off. So hopefully I'll be able to stay connected to you today.
Bless you. We've been there,
Can we have the electric radiator on, Daddy? No, just in case it upsets us.
We've actually been there, Rob, because there are some places in central Portugal that have really, really poor internet. And Carl does a show, and everything
happens
is
with
like,
the electricity and the internet signal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All is going well so far. So thanks, Rob, for doing that, and thanks to the rest of your family for going through inconvenience and discomfort so that we can do this.
Bless Laura, because she's going to be copying it a little bit this morning, isn't she?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
We've got another couple of messages coming in. Susie's saying it's another rainy grey day in Vazé de Marais.
It sounds like a dance, doesn't it?
Or I don't know how to pronounce that. This village is between Ceia and Oliveira do Hospital, waiting for a contractor to come and install a new hot water tank as well as other work. Yeah, and this is the time to get all that sorted out, actually, before it gets too cold. We changed the gas over this morning, just so in case I forget.
Excellent.
Sorry about that. That just reminded me. Sarah's saying, good morning. I do wonder where the term woke came from in the first place. So should we get into some
talking of gas as well,
jokery?
before we move on from gas, I've got something that I need the community to help me with. I wasn't sure whether to talk about it on the Good Morning Portugal program or if it might be a little bit too compromising and difficult.
Farting.
Well, no, it was a continuation. Something I ate yesterday caused me to, and I'm not sure if you can help with this sort of medical challenge, Rob, and what it might mean metaphysically. But as I was going out to walk the dogs this morning, I as you might, I mean, it's a human bodily function, and as you're leaving the house,
you didn't have to do an alfresco poo.
I let Polly out the cage as I was leaving our front gate. And I was thinking to myself, it's a good job my neighbour didn't hear that. Wouldn't it be terrible if they were coming out of their house to go to work? And as I looked to my left, there she was. I didn't know what to do, and it was quite a comedy classic. It was a proper Bronx cheer, I think the Americans call it. It was like... And I stepped out. Sorry, normal Barefoot Broadcast service will be. I mean, it is a thoroughly human condition problem.
It is, yeah, definitely.
And I looked at her, and the only thing I could think of to say was like, keep a completely straight face and say, "Hola, bom dia, tudo bem?" And she looked at me and said, "Tudo bem?" and I was just left.
Did she actually do that look?
I see. This is the interesting thing about humans and stories, isn't it? In my mind, I had it that she completely was thinking, dirty, horrible English neighbor. That is disgusting. And she might not have been thinking that, but that's the road I went down immediately. I was thinking, how do I deal with this? How do I say something about it? Why did I do it in the first place? And it was just it possessed me for a few minutes.
Yeah,
I have and still I'm not over it clearly because that's why.
And then you let it go.
Go for a second, sir.
Social guilt. You're still suffering social guilt. You're just trying to verbalize your social guilt here. Yeah.
And on a serious note, the really severe forms of that. I mean, if I am wont to do that as a general habit in life, Rob, that could lead to long-term illness, couldn't it? If my whole world is framed by my concerns about how other people view me, and it's shrouded in embarrassment and shame, that could have a long-term health challenge, could it not?
Well, I think probably most of us are in that boat all the time anyway.
Well said. Well said. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say
not for the same reasons necessarily, but certainly in that same boat. Yeah,
we're all we're always trying to sell ourselves, and we want to be accepted. I mean, we're pack animals, most of us, and we want to be accepted, don't we? So on some level, we must always be selling ourselves to the group that we aspire to or want to be involved in.
Yeah. Sarah's saying she might have thought good for him. I think she might have thought
that is one of the thoughts. No, that's one of the thoughts that went through my head. I was hoping that I was going to discover sometime soon that Portuguese people think like it's no big deal for Portuguese people, and the louder and longer the better.
Yeah.
And that she might have come up and high-fived me later on today.
She might do.
She
we'll
might
find out.
We'll see.
You know.
We'll see.
Gillian,
she might come and give you a tissue.
Yeah.
Muito obrigado.
As my son said to me, yes, Mum, there's no shame about farting around you. I tend to celebrate the really loud ones. Oh, good for you, Gillian. I have
She's so over it.
Yeah, good for her. Anyway, it's interesting that
woke.
You were talking about shame and embarrassment.
Yeah.
Because actually,
it's all part of this.
We've all been. I'm pretty sure we've all been pretty like what people consider to be woke in the past, and might have reverberations of it, like echoing out in our vibrational field now. And I also recognize that there have been times when I've used my political feelings to shame up my parents.
Well, of course, that's all part of the process of growing up, isn't it?
Is that what it's about?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so.
Where do you want to start with this conversation, guys?
Can I take some responsibility for this? Because I think it was it's an idea that I've been wanting to share, and I'm very interested, seriously, genuinely interested in how this affects our health as well. Because I mean, everything affects our health. That's what we are slowly discovering, I think. Right? It's not health isn't a separate box into which you go inadvertently, usually when you're so-called ill. We are developing an entirely different understanding thanks to the work of people like Rob here, based on Hammer Time, Dr. Hammer's work.
I always think that as well.
I do as well. But there are people doing amazing, enlightening work around here, and Rob's part of that, to give us this deeper metaphysical understanding of physical health and well-being. Well, thank you for that, and acknowledge you for that, Rob. And I think the woke conversation is all part of that conversation and journey at the moment. And I think you're absolutely right. The thing about, it's traditional to rebel against your parents' ideas as a first position in teenage years. And I think that's where some of my taking responsibility for the subject matter today. That's how I did become radicalized as a socialist, vegetarian, feminist in my early 20s. And I put that on Facebook as, it's like, listen to the show tomorrow and find out how I became radicalized as a socialist, vegetarian, feminist. Veganism was later on in my 30s, I think, as a different sort of ideological pitch into the world. And then when I put that on Facebook, people say, "Oh, right on, man, good for you." And I was thinking, "Oh God, it was a joke. I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of what happened to me in my 20s. Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with any of those things, and everyone's got a view, haven't they? Whether they are a socialist or not, whether they like socialists or not, whether they're, especially at the moment with feminism, am I a 27th generation feminist who is pro anti-trans, whatever? All of these things are rich seams of conflict at the moment, aren't they? Let's face it. And vegetarianism, that's another one. Veganism. All of these are deeply agendaed, deeply emotional, polarizing things going on in our society at the moment. And I made the point about it, this woke in progress idea, that it's quite amusing to look back and think how possessed I was by these things, separating that from intrinsic value of what feminists are trying to achieve, separated from the intrinsic value of what socialists are trying to achieve, the founding impulse of what they believe. I believe to be a noble and honest and authentic and vulnerable thing that they're trying to do. And then unholy hell has been let loose over the last few decades or generations to do with that. And that is now the problem we've got with this kind of woke thing. And so I'm not into woke bashing. What I'm really interested in is, what was I thinking at the time, and why was I thinking it? How is that connected to health? How is that connected to us growing in the future as differently expressed and more brilliant human beings? Because on the one hand, it feels like this woke agenda is polarizing and dividing and undermining us more than ever. That can't be good for us. So what causes it? What is the cause of that? And for me, my sense of why people have the views they do is deepening. And maybe with Rob's help here, we go into how that works on a health and well-being level. Because I think most people's political views are formed out of their trauma, and that's certainly for me. If I own that, I had a certain view of my childhood, which I felt had some salvation or enlightenment or something. So a healing might occur if I moved away from my parents and all that I'd been brought up in a fairly sort of privileged background with a good education, and I went to the other side, if you like, into the Socialist Republic of South Yorkshire, where I met new people who were interested in these radical political social ideas, and I felt like I was sticking it to the man, sticking it to my parents, and I'd found a kind of spiritual home, only to discover later on in my Saturn return that actually that would all be would be undone and absolutely destroyed by other information and a new deeper spiritual home with different ideas and different people, which has been part of the whole journey. But I think that's the first point. I think people do form, whilst it feels like it's an ideological and philosophical and political and noble struggle, people might miss the fact that why they grasp that is to make something right that they perceived as wrong as children. So I'll stop there. That's a really great.
So that's your first point. I want to see what what's going on. Sorry, I've got loads of notes.
She's mind mapping.
And as I was looking, I've actually got one called Carl's Fart at 10 minutes. To go back to.
Which I'm trying to put behind me.
So are our political views created through our trauma and like how you kind of developed? What was your story, Rob?
I think
you rebel against your parents as some form of trauma.
No. I think that for a lot of us, I don't know, I couldn't say everyone, obviously, but a lot of people, we grasp, we take on a cause, political or whatever you choose to eat and such, right? Usually, well, originally when I thought about it, I thought, well, it's to do good. You think it's the right thing to do. You're trying to, as if there's an innate instinct in us to do the right thing. Most of us, right? Not everyone, but and I think we all get on. We find something that ticks the boxes for us, for our life perspective at that time, because your life perspective is just basically, how much you sort of know and what you've kind of worked out, isn't it? But it changes the more you know. But I think we try to do the good. That's what I reckon. I was the same as a sort of therapist, as an engineer. I was a bit lost in life. I wasn't really interested in it at all. In fact, not even slightly. But to do something, I was always drawn to do something that had some kind of value, what I could feel as value. I wanted to do it because I thought it was a good thing to do. So I was sort of pulled to want to do the good thing. And I think that's the same. That kind of applies to is a big influence, at least, on our political views and also our life choices, like veganism and vegetarianism or whatever it is, right? So I think I think there's that sort of driving instinct in a lot of people to do what's good for the greater, whatever that is. I mean, I don't really go about thinking, I must do well, I do recently, actually, but life has gotten really strange recently. But 5-10 years ago, when I was just being a therapist and doing this course and that course and treating a few people, you're always just trying to do the right thing. And you're trying to save the world from itself, right? Because you all one for a couple of years, oh my God, it's all to do with saturated fats. And then, oh no, you realize, oh no, it's not all to do with saturated fats. They're actually really good. And I've got to tell the world about that. And then it's all, you got to drink clean water, and we're all sort of going through this phase of trying to save the world. At least I think I did. And I think that's the same with politics. What we're talking about today I think most people are politically minded to fix a situation called life.
Yeah.
And you sort of get, you put all your eggs in that one basket, and then, there's lots of things keeping you stuck in that basket for a good while, because A, you put all your eggs in it, and B, you sort of talked yourself into it too. You absorb the colour of that party. And I think organically, you know, in principle that would work. But that assumes that there are differences. There's nobody behind all the parties.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But it doesn't seem to be that way. But you know, on our level, on the user level, we're not top down. We're not controlling the world. We're just sort of in the world trying to make a way through it. I think so, you know, because I mean, I remember I was hugely supportive of Scottish independence when it was on the go, right? But now I look back and I think, I don't know if that would have been the best thing. And my whole sort of political, my connection with politicians and the way the country's run has totally changed. I'm totally radicalized now. You know, I want things to be very different. I don't want to join a party. I've kind of lost faith that there are parties, as a matter of fact. I think there is, you know, and I want to reestablish a sort of organic, a true, an authentic life. When I say that authentic, I instantly think back to the work of Dr. Weston Price, who went to like communities that were all just lived in amongst themselves for hundreds and hundreds of years, and he found happy people that were of perfect health. They had no health challenges at all, and no tooth decay, no health challenges. Beautiful symmetrical faces, beautiful, bright, happy young kids, old people having a purpose in life and living to a good old age. And he found it in all over the world, in totally independent communities. And yet they had something that worked for them, you know, for the human animal. And I think since then we've been very confused, you know, we're all trying to get back to that, but we don't know it exists. So we're just sort of scrambling in all directions trying to fix the world, and it ends us up in the Conservative Party or the Labour Party or some other party, you know.
And as you say, these are very limited and limiting ways of dealing with this. And I'm not criticizing any of those ideologies or leanings at all. They will have their intrinsic value for people, and people have their reasons why they have made those choices. What I thought was really interesting about what you just said there, Rob, is you thought, and that's it comes from thought, doesn't it? My first fix in life was to try and fix my thinking and other people's thinking. So I wasn't in touch, or to put it a different way, how was that working for me? Now, interestingly, I joined a tribe of people. I got acceptance. I felt cool. I felt different. I felt like I belonged to something. I felt like our views were better than other people's views. And that was a comforting thing for a young person in their 20s, in their early 20s, to be. The cool people with the best views, and to be accepted by those other people with those cool views was just great for me. It was a real balm or difference, a positive difference to how I had been in the previous decade as a teenager and as a kid, for example. And that's all on the thought level, isn't it? That's how it occurred to me. It's how I chose my thoughts. It's how I chose what to say, how I chose what to be in these social situations. How was I in myself? That old-fashioned phrase that older people use. How are you in yourself? Meaning your mental health, I suppose. That's old money for mental health, isn't it? I was miserable on the inside. I developed eczema. I went to see a counselor, therapist for the first time in my life. I experienced a real kind of breakdown mentally, emotionally, spiritually, despite having this exterior fix. Well, I suppose that's the progress, isn't it, of the human being, if you're lucky or if you're unlucky, however you see it. But you make progressive patches, don't you? So your 1.0, your 2.0, your 2.1, your 2.2, then a big breakthrough to 4.0 if you're lucky, 5D, blah, total ascension. And that's how I see it now, is that it was the thought level, and it fixed and patched me, but it didn't truly heal me. Because I think that's what we're all trying to do, especially in the culture we've got at the moment. We're spending a lot of our time unlike those people that Weston Price found that had quite a functional way of life, mythical, legendary beauty of life, we've created a culture, aren't we, that we are forced, well, actually not forced, but we have the a reaction to it, as if there is a sort of archetypal, pristine way of being and beauty of humanity that Weston Price might have been pointing at or discovering or researching. We're not it at the moment in our culture.
No.
So we spend a lot of time adjusting and healing ourselves, because you can't get adjusted and healed adequately outside, because all that's available, it would seem, in the mainstream is ideology. And I think that's part of what we're learning at the moment, is ideology might fix temporarily, if you're lucky, a little bit, but it doesn't heal. And maybe that's why we're so bloody angry about ideology as well, because we know it's a lie. We know all the things that are being said can be PR'd and spun and marketed to sound cool and make you sound better than other people, but you're still fighting against other people, and at your core, you're not really healing as a result of those things. And I wasn't. It took something else. It took trans woke, which in itself, because of what's going on, if I say trans woke now, that is an entirely different thing to what I'm trying to say. But
it makes you sound even cooler to some
communities, and an object of derision and hatred to others. But what I'm trying to say is, my woke years were a fix for the years before that, but they weren't an adequate fix for what I really needed, which was to come in a different conversation and set of values, or see a way of seeing the world.
Thank you, both of you. I just want to jump in because we're getting some great comments, and I just wanted to really love what you said, Rob, at 24 minutes, because I'm making notes, so I can do some shorts. When you said we're all trying to save the world, we're all trying to fix life at some level, because I do think that's where it's coming from, and you've alluded to that as well. That
was another part of the phase. I had my David Icke years of wearing the indigo tracksuit years. I thought the world needed to be saved, so I got into the environment, permaculture, and all that. That was the next bit.
Yeah, and at some level, I do feel like that. And at the same time, also feel like actually it's perfect the way it is, because this is what's meant to happen. But, I'm kind of both. I've got my feet in both camps. One thing that I saw something yesterday or the day before where somebody had said, it's less about which party you're supporting or which religion you affiliate to. Now, people are really divided in two ways. And that is that there are some people that want to fix people and think this is the way to do it. So there are some people that want to do stuff to other people, and there's a whole other bunch of people that actually are in a place of wanting to fix themselves and to do their life beautifully, and to work without prescribing. So there's almost like two different mind shifts. And like when you said we're all trying to fix the world, we're all trying to fix life, when you were saying that, Rob, I mean, isn't that what we all do for our children? Like you're trying to stop.
If they're unlucky, yeah.
You're trying to, you're creating a world whereby your lovely 3-year-old can fully express himself and also not kill himself. And I imagine that you also are trying to create some safe danger for him, so he gets to experience some of that and build some of those skills without actually killing himself. And we're kind of doing the same with our kids, aren't we?
And we have to be careful, don't we, that is also not just another expression of our unresolved healing that we're imposing on our children.
Yeah.
Because to go back to what you said, I mean, that's put so well, and I it resonates with my sense of people's choice of the left and right and the red or the blue. It is a fix. It's how they think. Things could be better through that lens, if you like.
If everyone did this, it would all work.
Well, but the interesting thing about if we call it the left, is that that's much more proactive in like, this is what people should do, and then if this is what everybody should do, and then everybody will be all right. That's the kind of left thing. And I think people who feel that way have childhood issues of being abandoned, and that somebody should do something about my situation. And then there's the other ones, the people I've noticed who tend to be the blue in the UK and the red in America, and the right-leaning sort of people, and the libertarians are like, nobody does anything for you in this world, sweet cheeks. You've got to do it for yourself. And anyone who stands in my way of sorting my own life out by pulling myself up by my own bootstraps is just a communist who's getting in my way. And it's that it's these really early adaptations to life and seeing the world, I think, that inform those views, because those do, to me, they seem to characterize left and right. And when I look at my friends who I love equally, although some more than others, it has to be said, if you see what I mean. This is what I see. This is what I saw in my parents. This is what I see in deeply political people. You know, their politics is a real turnoff. You know, is it that which like religion and politics, like that English actress said, you know, it's like your penis, don't wave it in my face. Everyone's got one, but you don't have to wave it in my face. Now the left,
I think some of those actresses out there do have penises as well,
and I don't want to have that waved in my face either, but that's the left, isn't it? That's the left of, like,
you can't get anywhere without one these days.
Yeah, write that down, because that's another Barefoot Broadcast theme to pursue. But I think it really goes back to that. It really goes back to this, you know, this is what everyone needs to do, and everyone will be all right, to, like, just leave me alone. And I can hear when I've spent time and still spend time drifting in and out of those camps. I can see how that's so much a choice to do with childhood experience. And Rob, I mean, you know, what does that mean in the end? If you're so left-leaning or right-leaning that your ideological possession is so strong, so on the left it would be everyone needs to live like this or we're all screwed, and I'm going to make you live like this. That's the worst left-leaning nightmare, isn't it? Which
sounds actually like it's so far left, it's actually right.
It becomes totalitarian right. And then the sort of libertarians who, like, just leave us all alone, you know, just leave me alone to do my thing, to live in the hills and, you know, shoot anyone who comes anywhere near me. That's not socially functional either, is it? That's, you know, as much as I'm probably more leaning to that scenario.
We'll see you in your heels, Rob.
I don't think that's not a healthy. It's not a healthy thing, is it?
You guys, yeah.
Well, sorry.
I would say you guys wouldn't get within 500 yards. I'd have you both shot.
He'd be eating us for dinner.
We don't any bloody radicals come anywhere near our hillbilly farm. Oh no!
I'm so offended right now.
Right.
Rob, what are your thoughts?
Well, like, my thoughts are this: that I mean, there's just a million ways of you know, chewing the same sand, right? But the way, and it's painful every way, right? But the way the one way I think about it is, well, the true litmus paper of if we're doing things right is it reflects itself in your body's. Like, we're programmed hugely with our needs and how our bodies react to that needs. And if those biological needs are infringed upon, okay, the body reacts and you get a symptom. So you've said, you've intimated to us today, Carl, that you had eczema, right? Now, that is a physical representation of an issue that is your body's trying to resolve in your life physiologically because you didn't resolve it yourself. Right? So I think a good litmus test to see how we're doing is would be that using that sort of feedback. It's like a direct feedback. You know, if you've got diabetes, if you've got heart condition, if you've got if you've got eczema all over you, then it's telling you that there is your biological brain is tracking a life thing. And just to go back to the old Weston Price, what I believe he discovered was people who lived in harmony with that programming that is part of what we are. It's what we are. And the brain and the thinking is just like as an app that's quite a recent app. You know, it's not, other species don't have so much of it, right? And they don't pester themselves so much with it. So I think that's a good way of thinking about it. You know, it's just to look at my health, the health of my family, and, you know, the health of my kids, you know, because there are no diseases you catch. So if your kids get measles, then they've had a separation conflict. That's just a fact. That's what Hammer discovered anyway. I know loads of people are going to disagree with that, but that's
Yeah.
just the way it is, right? It's just one of them, right? But you see, so there is kind of indicators of how to live, and your emotions. And this is another really interesting thing, right? Is when the body starts to react to life, it does two things. It starts a physiological reaction, but it also creates an emotional one at that time. And you can, so emotions are kind of like a higher intelligence. How if you're not happy, it's not right. And so, but how do we? I don't know how to sort of balance that against. So does that mean you just separate yourself from life because, well, it doesn't seem like it's going right to me at the moment. So do I try and fix it, or do I just say, oh no, shutters down, that's it, I'm just getting out of this, and because you end up in this unsolvable problem, don't you, where you're trying to fix things that you don't really have any control of, and you're really standing on your pedestal and you're shouting your bit, and you're waving your flag, trying to fix the world again. This time it used to be. Yeah, but you can't. So that makes you frustrated, doesn't it? Yeah. So, and then if you do nothing, that makes you frustrated. It seems to be a bad lot, to be honest. There seems to be a lose-lose situation going on, unless you can disconnect from it. So somehow make it so it's not important. I'm not sure if I could do that, because I look at my child now. I've got a 3-year-old, so I'm thinking for him, and I would like him to inherit the world that I grew up in. Back in the 60s and the 70s, I'd like him to have that life.
Yeah. So, well said. And I think your app metaphor is great, because that to me is the if I'm looking at the woke years and then the spiritual years, and it's horrible to commoditize these things, but that is my experience. My political woke years seem to give me relief from my childhood years, and then my spiritual years, as poncy and wanky as that sounds, gave me relief from my woke years.
Yeah.
And what I'm becoming aware of now is the ability to switch off the app. That's it is an app, isn't it? This thing in which this information that we're talking about is being processed and being perceived and reacted to can be seen to be taking place in the app. And that presupposes that the app is sitting in an operating system, or is indeed on a bit of hardware that can be turned on and off. But it's transcendent, isn't it? The app is in something, and it's in the something that I think can find some salvation and peace in between bouts of what you're talking about, Rob, of like, that polar thing of like, do I stand and fight, or do I run for the hills? That's very much, that's kind of in the app, isn't it? That is within the app of the brain and how the brain might respond to it.
And we're trying to find relief. We're trying to find relief from this equation. I'm looking at myself. Am I flashing white to you guys?
Wow,
you are.
You're
ascending.
I must be on to something then.
Finally.
Yeah, listen to me. You're going to listen to me now. I'm divine.
It's all good. To us, you are divine for sure. Yeah. Can I?
There's the proof.
I would like you not to be bothered by that, because we're not bothered, But I'm
slightly unnerved.
Well, I have to say, like that's happened to me before, and when that happened to me, I couldn't actually carry on a conversation because I was so worried. And I want you to know not to worry about it.
Too close. He doesn't like me.
Maybe you've just like letting off some real.
You're waving it in our face.
Powers. Yeah, like stop waving your dick in our face. Like we've got some great comments coming in. So Gillian saying maybe that's part of why I'm rubbish at grounding the seeding wokeness. None of it makes sense. This is actually from quite a long time ago. So we were talking about farts, and we were talking about all sorts of different things. Gillian was also like, because we also mentioned veganism. The veganism one is interesting. I notice anti-veganism from folks who are swinging the other way and who are kind of anti-woke. Yeah, I'm noticing that phenomenon quite a bit as well. I woke up, got out of bed, dragged a comb across my head. I love that. Thank you, T-Duck. I wonder how many other people got that reference. I love that. Can you put the rest of the song in?
Is that Day in Life?
I don't know what the song's called, but it's the Beatles. I was listening to them yesterday, actually. Gillian saying,
"What are you okay, love? that one of your signs when you're listening to the Beatles?
I don't know.
So I'm kidding. But it's like, there are things, aren't there, where is your partner listening to the Beatles more often?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, when Rob was talking about emotions, like you actually said during your woke years, you didn't actually feel that much better. Like a minute ago, you said
I felt like I belonged, and there were like benefits.
Your emotions were there to let you know that something wasn't quite right.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, so maybe the Beatles is one of those things. I don't know. I played a lot of things that I grew up with.
Wow. Okay.
So I had a bit of ELO going on in the
Processing.
background. Yeah. Gillian, sorry, is saying, what I eat is a balance between what feels right for my body and my best attempt to navigate through this crazy system. And I can't do the industrialized death system or as much as possible. And I understand that. I went through a phase of, what did you call it? Orthorexia. Where you get so worried about causing harm in different ways that
you end up harming yourself.
Yes. And it's a really fine balance. So I really hear what you're saying there, Gillian. T-Duck, I believe woke is an invented distraction.
It's definitely been weaponized, no question.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I'm not vegan, but I lean that way for health reasons. I'm allergic to dairy products. So you wouldn't be doing that great big fart, like a dairy-based fart like I did this morning.
Is that what it was?
Maybe.
Right.
No, this is good. I really, sorry, not to say that everything else wasn't good, but I put a star next to this. Sarah's given us a couple of really sort of insightful
as she does.
What views do we adopt that make us feel good about ourselves? What views make us feel superior to others? Because we were talking about superiority.
I've got a list.
There was another one from Sarah. Where's that gone? Oh, here it is. And then once we place ourselves as superior to others, how do we keep that up and stay healthy at the same time?
It's very difficult
because that's what you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
Like we adopt a new way of thinking, which helps us feel better and also possibly superior to others that we're judging as not being as good. But how do we keep that up and stay healthy?
I would suggest that if it's ideological, it won't last, because the systems that Rob's referring to, the archetypal beauty of the human model, if you like, if that isn't supported or unfed, it will break down, and some illness, I'll do the bunny ears, Rob, but some illness will occur to tell us so. And so the closer we can come, and this is the big weapon of our times, isn't it? The further we deviate from the truth, and I'll use this in this circumstance, and I'll hope not to get myself blown to pieces by ideological dialogue about it. But let's call it the truth of being a human. The further we are from it, the more nature, if you like, the more that model itself or the intelligence behind it will tell us so. Now we've come to not appreciate that, because, and it goes back to something you said, I think, Rob, earlier on, it to do with mental health. If you're not feeling happy, whatever that means, and let's just sort of take it very broadly, I would agree with you. Well, I think you said, which is that something's wrong if you don't feel good. Something's gone wrong. We are essentially, I think, enabled to feel light and free and experience the joy of being alive. And our app, what differentiates us from animals, I think, is the app that allows us to see that is the case, whereas animals are just tied up in it. We can feel good, and we can feel good that we're feeling good, basically. And we are so out of touch with that as a basic premise, the truth, if you like. We're so out of touch with that truth that we're instead of saying, hold on a minute, how can we talk more to people like Rob and get back in line with that archetypal beauty of what it is to be a human being, we're normalizing mental ill health. We're saying it's normal to be depressed. We're saying, you're going to have bad times. And we're doing so much to normalize what is not the truth, which is, again, all part of the woke ideological battleground, isn't it? It's like, this truth, that truth, my truth, your truth, this isn't the truth, that's a lie, fact find, fact check, all of that sort of stuff. And all of it is nothing to do with just what I would see as the wholesome regard for what we are truthfully, eternally, beautifully. And we could be having conversations about that instead. Wouldn't they be ennobling and enlightening to do it? And that's why it's always great to talk to Rob, because he's in that. I think you're in that place, Rob, of pointing us in that direction rather than normalizing trauma, unhappiness, illness, and all that shitty stuff.
I do just want to quickly jump in for anyone that's gone through depression.
Well, you have to do this.
Say,
you have to do this.
When you say
like,
there's nothing normal about depression, I think you're right and wrong. Because I think depression is a normal experience to go through in this world,
in the one we've created.
Yeah, because like what person wouldn't get depressed when they're like trying to balance themselves and trying to make their way and trying to make sense of things. But I don't think it's a measure of good health. So I think depression is there really to show us that we're out of alignment with the truth of who we are.
Well, could it be?
Does that make sense?
And could it be as simple as like, if something's wrong, something is wrong? Okay, why not?
Go on. Can I just interject a little bit there, right? Like clinical depression, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna quote from Hammer's research because it is the most important in my little worldview at the moment. So we've discussed today already. Is that it comes from conflicts which the brain or the psyche registers, and they can be physically seen on CT scans in the brain. And specifically, it's when the brain, through the temporal lobes of the brain, interact with life. So if we suffer some kind of trauma that affects the temporal lobes of our brain, like that life issue, our brain almost is tracking that life issue, and it affects it makes us clinically depressed. It actually can force somebody into depression. So we're talking different things. We're talking, well, I'm really pissed off about life just now and I hate the government and da-da-da. That's one thing. That's like, oh yeah, I'm really depressed. But actual depression is when you're actually forced into a state of depression, and it can actually be charted on the brain scan. And it causes, I'm not going to get into what it causes, right? But it affects the brain, especially in the temporal lobes, and it causes it instantly. And the brain then tracks that life issue as you perceive it, right? As you perceive it, it's not even that real. It's as you perceive it in your, not only your conscious senses, all of your sensory ability perceives that issue and tracks it. And it almost as if, and if somebody can overcome that trauma that caused it all, or resolve that issue, the depression will lift within minutes, and it'll be gone.
Yeah.
So, and the depression can be severe for lasting for years, and it'll go. But another sort of thing that just came to my mind as we were talking away here. Not that I'm daydreaming or anything like that, but
I think it's healthy to daydream anyway.
Yeah, it's that. Common law, okay, they're basic. Well, from what little I know, but I am getting educated in it a bit. There are basically four things that have been distilled as the essence of what we need, what our rights should be as we're born. Everyone is born free. And then we enslave ourselves into a system which traps us through birth certificates and everything. And we don't realize it, but actually we're becoming slaves to a system which we are a long way above that system. But the four things are: cause no harm, keep the peace, cause no loss, commit no fraud. And those are like the basics of common law, I believe, right? And isn't it such truth about how, because we're talking about how we make sense of life and how we feel about, I'm just watching my wife almost reverse into my car, so I was getting stressed there, but she stopped. All right. All right, she's hit the brake. That's good. I can
is everything okay?
Right. Yeah, oh, good. She missed it. Nice one. So
isn't it funny, Rob?
So where was it? Yeah.
So there is a beautiful connection with the laws you've spoken of there. She infringed the laws, and that's not a joke.
Yeah, my property. Yeah, exactly.
Breach of the peace, and yes.
Yeah. So, and you know something, right? I think there's a battle going on between people who it's probably greed versus good. Or good and evil. I don't know what you call it, but I sort of see it as there's an instinct where greed, whether you call greed competitiveness or whether you call it somebody who's motivated in business, but the underlying, there's a fight in mankind between trying to become rich in some way, but we also even the people that are really greedy and want to be rich, unless they're psychopathically so, they do have these basic needs, which cause no harm, keep the peace, cause no loss, commit no fraud. And I would sort of say that politics, because we started off today talking about politics and stuff, right? And we get how we can be in really involved in one politics, like I was really into the Yes campaign, and now I'm sort of thinking, well, I'm kind of glad that didn't happen, because look at the mess the world's in now, and if we were attached to, if we were being told what to do by Europe, I don't think that would be a good thing at all. I don't. I think every country should be separate and go back to the way it was when they were all countries. Because there's always this battle in society where the people with the power are trying to get more power, and they're very good at it, and the proof of that is that they've got the power and the money to start with, and then there's the rest of us trying to have a good life and trying to make sense of it. And they sort of, the basic sort of premise of common law is cause no harm, keep the peace, loss or fraud, and I think those laws came from the work King Alfred the Great or something it was, who researched his country back in the flipping 9th century or something, or 10th, I don't know when, it was a long time ago, right? And he went and he spoke to all the peasants and said, well, what makes you happy? What's right and wrong for you? And he distilled it down into that. And it's probably really, there's probably a lot in that, in the essence of common law, which is what we actually need as people to function properly, to be happy, to have a life that we could have. I mean, this world could be brilliant, but it's not. And it's like people trying to infringe their rights on you, or what they think you should do on you and you trying to do it, me trying to do it to somebody else as well. We're all born unique, so which means that we've all got the right to be individual. We've all got that right, and nobody has the right. If I don't want to wear a mask, or if I want to be whatever I want to be, I should have that right to do that. But I should also have the right for other people not to be messing with my mind to make me want that.
Yeah.
Isn't it? There's levels and levels of stuff going on.
I absolutely love.
Can I, before to connect with that? I mean, if it's a law, it's a law, right? It kind of stands up robustly to life and the human mind. And what you said there, as far as I can recall, is a law that works in society.
Cause no harm, keep the peace, cause no loss, commit no fraud.
Now, if it's a law, to me, it would work in health as well. So do you want to say those again within a health context?
Cause no harm, keep the peace, cause no loss, commit no fraud.
That would work in health, wouldn't it?
Because we can bounce, if we do that and accept and expect that from everyone, and we give that to everyone, if everybody gives that to everyone, life would tick along really sweet. Right. And we'd just be bopping along, and we wouldn't really be worried about having to second judge why people are doing things, and getting frustrated that other people can't see the truth, and whether it's your political opinion, or whether you should be vegan or not. It's like, we're all double thinking, because the world seems to be full of things that are trying to trick us, or at least that's what. Perhaps I'm paranoid. Perhaps I'm not sure if I am, because a lot of people think like me, right? So
I don't think you're paranoid.
Yeah, so maybe get back to the basics, which was the Magna Carta in 1215 when that was signed, right? That was trying to establish some sort of ground level of how we should live together, right, and how we should interact together. And I think there's a lot in it. There's a huge potential in that, and everything that's come after that is the legal system, which is man-made, and it's all to do with making money out of other people, and it's to enslave other people into believing that you owe them money. Like the world could be good, but we have to do it as well. Everyone in common law, those 4 principles, everyone has to expect it and do it.
Yeah, right.
So you have to participate,
and then it works. And then it would work, and then you would see that all these so-called diseases would start to fizzle out very quick, and I just think I think those are key priorities.
Well, interestingly,
we're looking for priorities.
With what you're saying, like if you applied that to the food industry, cause no harm, keep the peace, cause no loss, commit no fraud. Most food companies would go broke straight away.
Yeah, well,
there are
that's
things they're doing that they know they're causing harm to humans with.
Yeah, because there's a whole structure of society, this modern society, this legal, this maritime law society, which is built on trying to be clever to extract more of somebody else's wealth to you. And it's like a basic starting point of how to live, and it's a wrong one unless you're a greedy person and you're on the receiving side. Then it's a really great one. But and it's like if you're really good at being greedy, you'll make a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's where I would bring it back to the basic proposition of how people are as a result of not being healed. How they're behaving at the moment reflects the level to which they are healed or unhealed. So using
but the thing is, how much healing we need reflects upon the environment that we're in. So it's all tied up.
Yeah, that's the point. That's exactly what I'm saying. So if you take the grossest and most disgusting thing happening, perhaps that we could see in the news on our planet at the moment, in our collective conversation, let's look at the people who are enabling the conflict in the Middle East. The people who make weapons, for example, that are capable from a gun to a bomb that's capable of obliterating a child, which is perhaps the most difficult and emotional part of what we're seeing is the slaughter and destruction of children. Now, people are making things that enable that, and that would be my question to those people who make those things. It's like, what happened to you? How is it that you can continue to do that using these laws that there's no, they are causing harm, they're breaching the peace, and they transgress all of those laws.
That's right.
And my question to them would be, well, what happened to you? And this is a question. I'm not just singling them out. They are just an extreme example to illustrate the point, because we can ask this question of all of ourselves, and I ask it of me as well.
But none of us hold them to account. You see, we don't expect these things. I mean, we have to. We're not born intrinsically like geniuses. We have to learn life, and at the moment, somebody else is learning us. And we're ending up being what they want us to be. Right. Yes. And nobody, if you say cause no harm, keep no peace, cause no loss, commit no fraud, like you can read that off kind of quick, but if you start to live that, you start to think, well, what is that? What does that really mean? How the hell could I continue? How do I have to live to abide by those 4 things? It takes such a massive shift in the paradigm and the wants and aspirations that have been put into us by a system that wants to keep itself going.
Absolutely, mate.
Yeah.
It's such a big. It's such a big fairy tale, isn't it? It's myth and legend in our times, where we've had these layers of this culture. It's almost mythical to speak of these laws, and the beauty of myth, I think, is that when you hear something in a children's fairy tale, or in a legend or a myth, you can hear the truth in it. It may not be apparent and it may not be embodied in our time, but the skeleton of it, the truth of it, the DNA of it appeals to something inside us, such that a man like yourself, Rob, would want to aspire at least to do that, even if he knows there are lots of things going against him in that quest.
Mm-hmm. You see, I feel, I don't think I'm alone in it. I want to reestablish a sort of goodness in life, so that life isn't a competition. It's more of it's more of a sort of team effort that's not really fighting against any other team. It's just like a team that keeps itself going. It's not competitive. Does that make sense?
It does, and that brings us full circle to the woke thing, isn't it? One of the pillars of woke.
If everyone does the same thing, we'll all be okay.
Well, yeah.
Would you force your goodness on people for their own good?
That wouldn't be good, would it? And the thing about the competition,
it has to be something that people elect.
Well, you have to
because
you need goodness, and people naturally.
No, because everyone's born unique, right? You cause no harm, keep no peace, cause no harm. You cannot go inflicting your views on other people.
Right.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You've got, when you start looking into what that means, it means, well, you can't harm, as long as that person's views or actions don't affect other people or other people directly or indirectly through what it's doing to the environment, then,
leave them be.
If everything, so I'm starting to splash again. If everything,
power is increasing.
I'm rising. Oh my God!
It's special technology. This is.
It was when you gave us your manifesto for goodness. All of a sudden,
I'm flashing again. Oh, there's definitely a sign here. Oh, I'm calming down. I'm obviously getting really motivated in this conversation, so I think that's.
Do you know what? We're maybe this is one we can carry on with another day.
Yeah.
We've got loads of comments I haven't even got to, and I would like to read them out. And some of them I think are going to be quite funny, given how random this conversation has been. First of all, Gillian says, "Thanks for saying that. Re Scottish independence, Robert. We've had have had a very similar thought about that." She was also adding, "I'm certain our teeth tell much of our levels of stress and prior journey. I'm sure you have wise things to share around that." Maybe that's for another day as well. I'd love to know more about that. Gillian's also saying you're very generous, Carl, with your honesty. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think you are. Stephen Wells, I love this. Sorry, Stephen, it's taken so long to get to you. A lovely 3-year-old that is fully expressing themselves is not a lovely 3-year-old for others around them.
And do you know what's really funny about that is how people stick around a 3-year-old expressing themselves, being upset by it.
Yes.
Like if you're an adult, if you're a grown adult and a child is upset near you, you could sit there and be really upset about it yourself and have all your own issues triggered again, or you could get up and you could walk away and do something else.
Yeah,
it's up to you. Really, isn't it?
Yeah, I remember seeing a mum with a really fed up child at a supermarket checkout. And I happened to have a little toy in my bag, and I just passed it to her, and she looked at me and went, "Oh, thank you." There's so many different ways we can handle that. But I do understand that, because Steve and I felt like that. And with our children, if our kids are not mucking up, if they're freely expressing, and I can see that, it could be irritating. My inner programming of like being a child growing up in an era of like they should be seen and not heard, I tend to move our kids out of the way of everyone.
I suppose it depends what you've been driven by, isn't it?
I'm now not trying to do it quite so much. But Stephen, your comment has really echoed lots of different parts of this conversation.
Cause no harm on the passers-by.
Without also causing harm to your child, because they're learning that, I don't know, it brings up so much. Gillian is saying we just need to put the Sagittarians in charge, and it wouldn't be chaos at all.
So would.
It would be utter chaos.
It would. It'd be very difficult for us Cancerians, Gillian.
Thunderduck is saying, one of my favorite quotes: "Which part of libertarianism bothers you? The part where you have to make decisions about your own life, or the part where you don't get to make decisions for mine?"
It's an understandable sentiment, isn't it?
Yeah, I really love that. I totally feel that. Gillian saying you can't get anywhere without one. I think that's in reference to the penises. Says Rob. Gillian's mind. Are they some sort of passcode? Are they used to pick locks? How? It's interesting when you said pick locks. Because we were talking about penises, I actually read that as pricks and cocks. I need to do some internal healing, obviously. Sarah saying,
I think I can help with that. Okay, cool.
Sarah says, anything.
Why are you laughing? Why did you laugh when you said
that? Anything that is not holistic is not holistic. I love that. Thank you, Sarah. Stephen's saying, one thing I don't think I've heard mentioned is wanting to be accepted. Lots of views these days will get you excommunicated from one community or another. And this can lead to community hopping and people fitting in from one ideology to another purely from, in my opinion, the fear of exclusion. Yeah. That's a really interesting point, actually, Stephen. I really felt a lot of pressure during COVID, and all of my not being accepted buttons were massively pushed because I absolutely wanted to live the life that I wanted to live and be trusted or be kind of left alone to be able to be a responsible adult. And I also felt the massive pressure of not fitting in. And obviously I chose not to fit in and took the pressure of it. It's really difficult. Have you guys got something you want to say about that?
Yes, I want to. This leads me on to those people who say, I don't care what other people think. And you do get this, don't you? Oh, I don't care what other people think. So I've got a special message for you people who think you don't care what other people think. You're an idiot. That was a test. Just to see.
What to see if
yeah.
It's interesting, because you do get those like irascible individuals that say, it doesn't bother me.
I'm just testing them there.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Sarah's saying, include everything, judge nothing, and just choose what works for you and be an allowance of the rest, that it might exist whether or not you choose it for yourself. Oh, this fly is getting very intimate, isn't he? I love that. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah trained in access consciousness, so I really love this way of, her sort of self-inquiry.
It's transcendent and elevating the way that she, restructures things and puts things.
Gillian saying, yes, Stephen Wells, recomplying to avoid exclusion. Yeah. I mean, I think we experience that in our families. Like anyone that's like grown up feeling like the black sheep will have a real big listening for social exclusion.
I've got this thing going back to my woke years. The peer group that I was in, I imagine now they hate me. That's my way of dealing with the exclusion, by seemingly criticizing them now in retrospect. I have to sort of prepare myself for how they might respond to me. And it's a very strong thing, isn't it?
They might actually feel rejected by you.
Yeah.
They will have moved on. They will have evolved as well.
Who knows? Yeah. I haven't checked the truth of it.
The group may still exist, but the people will have moved through it just like you have, Carl, don't you think?
I don't know. That's the problem, is I don't know. I'm making things up about it to manage my feelings about it, rather than just maybe ringing a couple of them up and saying, I've been thinking about this. What do you think about it? And they say, yeah, we were all arseholes back in those days or whatever. And it would be over, wouldn't it? And we'd move on. But I've made a structure around it to suit to manage myself and to manage my emotions around it, I suppose. And that's what I do. That's what we do.
Yeah. Really, really good questioning. And I think Rob's right. It really would move through, just like one of those jolly good farts you had this morning.
It's so helpful as an analogy. Isn't it?
Gillian saying, yes, Stephen Wells, avoiding. Oh, I've done that. Sarah saying, not being an allowance is sickening.
Literally.
Yeah. Yeah, you are sickening yourself. Would love those common law words framed on my wall. I'm going to put them in the show notes.
It's available from Rob's merch table at the back of the room.
Sarah's saying, love your brain, Robert.
Can we get a photo of him flashing with those words around him and a framed print of that?
Sarah loves your brain. I think she'd probably love the rest of you as well if she met you. In fact,
I once, my brain, you don't realize you got one until you lose the half of it. I once I had a little racing car, right, and I woke up 2 weeks later in hospital, and it's like you don't realize you got something until you lose it. And I took a long time getting myself back to functional.
What did you?
Years.
What did you lose? Which half, if you like?
I banged. I had a head injury. I was in a coma for over 2 weeks.
Right.
But the soul searching, the self-questioning you go through when something like that happens, it's a lesson in life. I think I must have needed that lesson to have had it. But so she says, "I loves my brain." Well, I love it too. But what's left of it?
And that was what set you on your journey, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it definitely made me stop and think, because it does, doesn't it? Makes you re-question it.
Yeah. Owen is saying common law surpasses everything. So a big thumbs up from him. Stephen's saying, how do you hold a murderer to account? And that might be
the worst joke I've ever heard. I don't know. I'm ready though for the answer.
Which is funny to anyone that's not lost anyone to murder, but like if you've got a murdered relative,
guilt me out, why don't you?
I was straight there with it.
Yeah.
Do you know what? That would be a really good question for us to flipping challenge ourselves with, and not one I necessarily feel comfortable with. I remember having this conversation with my mum and dad at a pub in Exeter one day. Sat at a table with Carl and our first child.
Was that in the series of upsetting conversation? Was that number 3?
I have no idea.
Right, okay.
But I mean, it went round and round in circles, and my mum, I was really holding this fly.
Oh, please! I'll have to kiss that nose later.
I remember spending so much time talking about how we needed to support people because it's not normal behavior to murder somebody. And, obviously,
I remember that day.
And my mum and dad were just incensed and saying, but you haven't been a parent long enough, or what happens if it happened to you? And I was like, no, I would give them space. They need to rehabilitate. And now I just don't know where I fit in the whole question. But I remember it being so triggering.
But these questions are like, how do you mess with someone's mind? You ask them a question like, how do you hold a murderer to account? And I think the problem with questions of that kind, with all due respect, Stephen, and I imagine your intention was very different, and I've hijacked it for my own agenda now.
Yeah.
But to me, to address what would be a very unique, particular situation in someone's life as a general kind of moral maze question, it is always going to tear people apart. You don't know until you're in that situation and you're facing that horrible scenario yourself. And I'm assuming it's horrible because I've not been in that situation. That's not been a reality for me. And I think these questions of that kind, where it's like a universal thing that we all dread, being turned into an answer that might solve that question. It can't be done, can it? Because no one knows until they find themselves in that situation what they would do. And we've seen, haven't we, how it's reported. There are people who respond with reconciliation. There are people who respond with revenge and murder themselves as retaliation. And I don't think And I think I enjoy those debates least now when I see them in the news. It's just like a quiet news day question, isn't it? It's like, well, should we bring back hanging? Because we talked about vegetarianism, veganism yesterday, and we'll talk about Brexit tomorrow. But today we'll do, should we bring back hanging? Because we know that just winds everybody up. Nothing will get decided, but it'll keep everybody wound up for the 2 hours of the phone in. And I think that's the dynamic that's going on there is a universally dreaded situation that the mind is trying to come up with an easy answer for, and it's not. It could never be easy by definition.
And interestingly, like right now, there are quite a few people around the world from different parts of the world dealing with this right now because they're believing that there is a massive wholesale medical murder situation that's being perpetrated.
One, yeah. Sorry. Okay, yeah.
And iatrogenic deaths, like most deaths that happen in hospital, I think a third of them are through
medicine itself.
Itself.
So
I mean that would be a massive question. If the information about iatrogenic deaths, i.e. death via the medical system, are true, it's huge. And also it would bring in all of those debates, like Canada changing laws on euthanasia, and like how do you actually even define murder?
Exactly. Well, that's why it's a bit of a trick question as well, isn't it? Because the question is assuming already that a murder has taken place by a murderer within a particular
and
context.
that also brings up abortion and sterilization and all sorts of things. Right. Okay. Sarah is saying, okay, common law T-shirts for everyone. And Stephen
signed by Rob.
Yeah. And Sarah Stephen's saying Rob's brain is for sale at $39.99 plus tax.
No,
and
that's
shipping.
a framed print. His brain is a lot more expensive.
I was going to say his brain's worth more than that.
Yeah, I'd
so
say
you're
so.
talking about the T-shirts,
Yeah.
Because I was going to say,
or the framed print.
What price would we put on Rob's brain?
Yeah.
Sold. Oh my God, they're having an online auction.
Yeah, poor Rob.
My brain going to be disappointing.
You didn't know you were coming on this show to have your brain auctioned.
Yeah.
News. Agreed. Seems to be a very big enemy. I think that's greed, maybe. Yeah, greed is the enemy. Eliminate greed. The world is vastly improved. Sarah saying, Louisa, never laugh about a man's penis.
True story.
Very true. Very true. Now
Yeah.
listen to that. That's wise words.
She knows what she's talking about, that woman.
Yes, Sarah's like, she's a legend. Steve, this is maybe part of the context where Stephen was coming from. But we are in that situation now with Israel, Palestine, and Rob was saying to hold people to account. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that extra bit of context.
Stephen, I'm talking to Mike. We're going to be auctioning Mike Brody's brain tomorrow. That's our special brain auction tomorrow is of Michael Brody, the man behind OurNet. And that's a question I'm sure he'll be happy to address tomorrow, holding people to account. It's a very interesting proposition. I mean, for me, a lot of what I see about this we might sound very callous, but in a way, so much of what I involve myself with and get emotional about is actually none of my business. And I think I have to own the fact that I am just emotionally amusing myself with the tragedies of other people. And I think a lot of other people are too. That's what Twitter's for. And it's disgusting. It's despicable behavior. I'm guilty of it. But I am. Well,
you're not taking joy from it, but the energy of
in some ways,
things.
What's the difference? Yeah. You know, if you're allowing yourself to be emotionally stirred, looking at pictures of other people's lives, which ordinarily you don't give a crap about from day to day until it's sensationalized in some way. If you're giving some of your energy and your consciousness and your precious intelligence to that says more about you than holding people to account and all that, because then that would just be another supplementary discussion about other people's misery, wouldn't it? I don't think I have any direct control over that, and I can only apologize really for my despicable behavior in doing that and using it in that way. And I think I would invite other people to do the same.
You're holding yourself to account by being stirred and moved.
Well, there you go. There's the answer to the question, right? The only person you can hold to account really is yourself. That's what you're saying.
In being moved by that.
At all.
Okay.
Who are we to hold anyone else to account if we haven't even started with ourselves? Would be a useful answer, I think, to Stephen's question.
Yeah, another question to talk about another time. Yeah. A couple more comments. I was just about to end the show there, but you might have actually really stirred up a hornet's nest. Who knows? Gillian is saying, "Gosh, that is so true, Carl." And
about man's penis. What was it?
It might be just what you just said. And Sarah's, what is right in front of us that we could actually impact in a practical way?
That is what I'm going to ask you next time you see my penis.
What?
How could you impact it in a practical way?
Why would you be asking Sarah that?
No, I'm talking to you, not to Sarah. No, I'm not talking to you, Sarah. Damn, don't kill me.
Oh my goodness.
Sublime to ridiculous.
And Gillian saying,
cause no harm.
Yeah.
Thank God you're here, Rob.
Yeah, just to reiterate the common law principles that Rob shared with us. They are cause no harm, keep the peace, cause no loss, commit no fraud. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Rob.
Commit no fraud.
Yeah.
To me, that spoke of authenticity and vulnerability.
Yeah.
And radical honesty, right? Go on, Bob.
We should do it. We should do it and expect it.
Yes. Yeah.
And if everyone would do that, and it's not impossible. It's just how we're sort of trained. It's just how we're sort of persuaded or coached along into becoming. Again, in those communities that Weston Price talked about, with which also had perfect teeth, because tooth rot or tooth caries are caused by bite conflicts, so they're caused by conflicts between people about life. It's nothing to do with bacteria or not brushing your teeth at all.
So in adults and children, because I remember
in adults and children, absolutely, that's what causes them, because your mouth is supposed to be full of plaque and bacteria. It's supposed to be. And the body needs that because when the conflict goes into resolution, it uses the bacteria to rebuild, depending on if it's the enamel or the periodont. It's a different process, different part of the brain, but it's happening for a very real life reason. It's nothing to do with eating sweeties or such.
Wow,
right?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So it's like the kids need to express conflict more. They need to be.
Yeah, it's a bite conflict. The bone inside the tooth is not feeling able to bite back or to bite to get something or to bite back to defend yourself, not being able, right? And the caries that affect the enamel, which, like, the enamel on your teeth is basically just it's skin cells, which is full of calcium and various minerals. So it's actually skin. It's to be technical, it's squamous epithelial tissue, calcified, and it is not allowing yourself or not feeling allowed to bite back, as if an authority is stopping you bite back. So one is not being able to, like, that bully is too strong, or I'm not able to bite. I'm not able to get back at my dad because he stopped me spray painting over the car, right?
Yeah.
Right. So whereas the enamel is, I had to bite my tongue because for some other reason, we did some sort of balancing of cause and effect. Well, if I said that to him, I wouldn't get the job next year, so I have to bite my bloody lip about that. Or I'll tell you a really good story, right? This is really, really true, right? Somebody phoned me up recently. She said, I've got I want you to tell me about G&M, and I'm not sure about it, but can you introduce it to me? And I've got caries on both my incisor teeth, both sides, top and bottom. And we're talking away, and when we hit the issue, I could just see it in her face. She just went emotional right away, bang, right? And then it started to ache, and that's a sign it's gone into healing. In the conversation, which was about an hour long, and it was that the lady was understanding what's going on in the world quite well, but the partner, who was a man, which I feel nowadays I've got to, for some reason I have to say that, the partner who he didn't get it, and it was coming up immunization time, right? And she didn't want that, and he was kind of, well, don't you think they know best, sort of thing, right? And she's like, no, they don't know best, and look at our lovely child. But she was she was trying to keep the peace within the family.
Bless her.
But this big issue burning, and she's right. I mean, I'm going to get into it a bit here. She's right-handed, so the right side of her, that tissue, the squamous tissue, is to do with partner or pack, and the left side is to do with nest and babies, and that's why she was getting the caries in her incisor teeth, which are the ones you really bite and rip to defend her child from her partner. So you can see how her body was interacting with life real time. And in the conversation, I saw it when I know this now because I've done so much of it. You can just see when you touch the thing, the real issue, that they go a bit misty-eyed and they go, oh, and you can see they're processing inside, and just all the dots have joined together, and it's like, oh, they get all emotional, and they sometimes, it gets into tears, but not always. But then it's like a release happens, and the body then is like hands it over. It says, oh, the conscious mind understands what the problem is now. I don't need to cause the tooth rot. So it starts the reversal of it, which causes toothache, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And she got the toothache in the conversation. So that's the feedback I was saying earlier in the conversation we had. It's such a good litmus test for how we're living life, is our health, in all good or bad.
Yeah,
that's amazing, Rob.
Interesting.
And like we all accept that bones heal themselves, don't we? If you break your arm, you have to put it in a sling, and you know that your bones can heal. But for some reason, we've all got this idea in our head that once your teeth rot, they can't heal themselves.
That's
and
right.
Weston Price, and I believe like Dr. Hammer and probably you, are saying, well, that's not true.
They can, they can, but it can take a long time, and it may be a lot less painful just to get the thing pulled out, right?
Yeah.
That's what's happening to me, Rob. It's so fascinating with teeth. It is that I've got some sort of teeth issues, and I've got a great mistrust of the dental industry. In the same way as I think a healthy mistrust of the sort of pharmaceutical, iatro industry, the standard mainstream medical industry. That's not to say if I needed some first aid and acute help, I wouldn't take it. But I've had teeth fall out since in this recent time. Coming to Portugal, this big change in my life, and I know I made a comment to you the other day, didn't I? That the teeth I've got a problem with are the ones that got messed about with by dentists. It's almost like my body feels safe to reject these things, these things they put into me that go against nature. They are an ideological coming back. Woke dentistry is an ideological fix of the human form, isn't it? With its clever things that it can do, like drill things into your jaw and then screw things on and glue things in. And all of these root canals and stuff, I think they're so dangerous. And just recently, I think with the way I've generally changed my relationship to the world, the man-made impositions in my very teeth are falling out, and I just don't want to be in me anymore. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's quite likely, very likely to be the case. Yeah.
I've had one root canal years and years ago, and my mouth like rejected it. This is before I started like listening to different things and whatnot, but it fell out. I went back and had it done again in my mid-20s. It fell out, and then I had it done a third time because I just like to learn my lessons really good, and it came out. And then I thought, sod this, I'm just gonna have a hole, I don't care. And I did that for ages and ages and ages, and actually there was still a tiny bit of tooth left. And we've got this really amazing kind of wizard biological dentist in the south of Portugal who doesn't advertise because he's had loads of problems in the past, where people try and shut him down. But he has people from like New York fly to Portugal to be treated by him. He has a really big like waiting list. And we had some really great conversations about it, like how to heal it. And his whole approach is really, really gentle and based on kindness and compassion. Really, really different.
And nature. A respect and love for teeth rather than going against it with all these technology. I know you've only got a millimeter of jaw left, but we've got this new technology that can drive a nano screw into it.
Yeah, it's all about this new technology that can make you look better, because you really need to look better, because everyone will love you, and it drives us to have all these procedures done, and it's just the way the world is in the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a beautiful. Probably we need to finish, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
That's a good concluding thought, there, isn't it? When my arm is hanging off or whatever happens, not that I'm wishing that to happen, I'll just rub some arnica on it there. Thank you, Stephen, for that. Unless he's talking about a different body part that we were talking about before.
Who knows? Oh my God!
Or is that for my wind? Will arnica help with wind?
I don't think arnica helps with wind.
It might help my neighbour with the shock.
No, I think yes, it might help her with the shock.
Or I'll take her some round later on.
Okay, so this has gone really round and round. This is great. Last comments then coming in from everyone. Ha 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 from Sarah. Gillian, thanks for all of this, Robert. So affirming. Have always sensed that I've hidden stuff deep in my teeth. As a result, I have great, healthy, deep rooted, but very little tooth left above the gum level. Sarah's saying amazing insight on teeth healing. And obviously we've got, Stephen's recommendation of rubbing arnica on yourself.
Whatever it is, just rub arnica on it.
There you can brush your teeth with it.
Yes. Gillian saying thanks to you all. Owen saying great show. I really want to say thank you to everyone that has joined us. And it's a longer one. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it. It's really kind of chilled out as well, and lighthearted, as well as covering some great deep principles. Rob, thank you once again for joining us.
Cheers, Rob.
Awesome. And
always excellent hanging out with you.
Yeah, we'd love to catch up soon. And if you and Laura and I don't want to name your your child or anything, because like it's.
Have you forgotten?
No, I do know.
Joking.
We've got a lot of names from.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are always welcome. You know, like if you do come, like move out of the Highlands for a bit and like come and do a little tour of Portugal, we'd love to say hi to you. And I'm sure there are some people here that would love to meet you as well.
Yeah. Come over if it appeals to you, for sure.
We'd love to.
There was a time.
Who knows? The future's great. The future's what we make it. So
yeah.
You just reminded me with children's names. There was in my woke years.
Do you want me to remind you of our children's names?
Yeah, sometimes that's useful. I'm thinking. I go through all of them before I get the right one.
Yeah.
But there was a time in my wokest of years when I would have wanted to name my child Swahili for self-expressed. But I'm not like that anymore. Okay, just imagine it's like from my woke years. You know,
seriously,
I'd find out what fully self-expressed was in Swahili, and then have a naming ceremony in a field somewhere and call my child that, giving them years of therapy to deal with, and onward the cycle goes.
Okay, if your name is whatever it is,
fully self-expressed in Swahili.
Let me just apologize for my husband's candor there. Please come back another time. But we'll go through that.
Hopefully they're one of those people who doesn't care what other people think.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully we'll see you all again another time. Thanks once again, and bloody great show. And loads of love. Have a great rest of day wherever you are, and we'll speak to you real soon. Lots of love. Bye for now.
Bye bye.